upsets, but we begin today with Gino Auriemma winning his 1,217th game last night as Connecticut beat Fairleigh Dickinson by 44 points. Auriemma now stands alone as the winningest D1 coach in all of basketball. At the same time, defending champion South Carolina won a program record 43rd straight game, beating Clemson by 32 points. Wilbon, which number are you more focused on?
Tony, it's the numbers don't matter. This is not 61 home runs. This is not hitting 400. It's not 100 points in a game. Thank you, Wilt. I'm focused on the programs themselves, how great they've been now, Gino, for forever. And Dawn Staley's program at South Carolina recently has just been tremendous. And so it's the programs. I mean, I'd love for them both to be in the Final Four and meet if that's possible. I love the notion of both those coaches and their programs being, if not dominant, just great. So I don't need to be obsessed with the numbers. Do you have a number that you care about?
Yeah, well, I'm going to deal with the numbers for a second because you have to take the numbers in the context of what they mean. And I don't mean to disparage Dawn Staley in any way. She's a great coach. She runs a great program. She has 3 national championships already, Mike, and she's won 617 games. But that's basically half of what Gino has won. And so, I understand why they brought a live goat onto the floor last night.
Yes,
I mean, you can
cool.
say whatever you want in praise of Dawn Staley, of Pat Summitt, Kim Mulkey, Tara Vanderveer, all of these people. But it's Gino. He has won 11 championships. He's been to the Final Four 23 times. Nobody else is close. Pat Summitt stands near, but not really that close. It's like John Wooden. Gino Auriemma is the greatest coach ever in women's college basketball. I was also taken by the fact that so many of his players were there. And you get to thinking when you see those pictures, Mike, let's do a Mount Rushmore UConn basketball. But you can't because you're going to leave out 3 or 4 or 5 of the greatest college players ever, right?
And Tony, and so you just described something that has nothing to do with the numbers. Although 11 is the number. But Tony, remember, at one point, Mike Krzyzewski had half as many wins as fill in the blank. They never caught John Wooden in terms of championships.
That's right.
But, Dawn Staley is poised to have a long run, right? I mean, she's not even mid-career. Maybe she's mid-career. I don't think she's mid-career. Kim Mulkey can have a long run, and so Gino, can he fend them off? Tony, I'm not going to say I'm more interested in the here and now, but the here and now is fascinating, Tone, because Gino's got, he's spanned 2 generations of great coaches. You mentioned Pat Summitt and Tara Vanderveer, and now he's got, he's got this new landscape out there that I'm really fascinated by, and it doesn't include numbers.
Let me go to this. Last year, towards the end of the season, Gino said, the amount of wins I'm going to have from now on is in single digits. Clear implication was he was going to retire at the end of last season. He was going to cede the number 1 spot to Vanderveer, and he was going to retire. Then he signed a 5-year, $19 million extension. So who's kidding who on that? Come on now.
Well,
come on.
Reinvigorated. And this is going to be good. I want to see those teams square off whenever they can, which should be March, late March. Let's move to the NFL. The Steelers go for their 6th straight tonight in Cleveland. They're 8-2, and the Brownies are 2-8. So, Tone, given that, do you give Cleveland a big chance, little chance, or no chance at all of upsetting the Steelers?
I want to say no chance. I think that Cleveland stinks. But there's 2 things that I have to mention. One is that Cleveland beat Baltimore. And they beat them with Jameis Winston, who'll be out there playing tonight. And 2 is that the Steelers, with Mike Tomlin, are 1-7 in Thursday night games on the road. This is a Thursday night game on the road. And since 1980, the Steelers are 0-7 in Thursday night games on the road against division rivals. This is Thursday night on the road against a division rival. What all these things mean, I don't know. But if you were scripting a trap game, wouldn't it be that here's Pittsburgh, they just beat Baltimore in a really hotly contested game. That was on a Sunday. Now they're on the road on a Thursday. Their last 2 games against good teams, Baltimore and Washington, the Beltway double. Now it's a bad team. It feels like a trap situation.
It does, Tony, and they got the Bengals coming out of this. So, they're put between, if you're talking about, feeling yourself for what happened and looking ahead to what might happen, it's set up that way. But, Tony, I think, and the Steelers have, for whatever reason, and this has gone on for a while, they've sort of played down to certain teams, on the road, even when they're really, really good Super Bowl quality, and this team could be that. And so, Tony, given all of that, all right, given everything that's gone on and the Steelers and the season they've had and figuring out their quarterback and Russ having played well, even though the last game he, had an issue or two, still winning, I'm saying that there's no chance at all. And I never do that with division games. I just filled out my confidence pool before I got on with you. And I assigned Pittsburgh, you can go 1-16. I only signed Pittsburgh winning by like 6 or 7. I'm going to go back before kickoff and make it a double-digit game. The Steelers are not going to slip up tonight. They're not going to do it.
Right. I was going to say I'm not stupid, but I am generally stupid. But in this case, yes, I'm going to pick Pittsburgh. Of course I am. I just bring up those historical things to make a point. Let's move to a totally speculative and a fun story in college football. The big games this weekend involve undefeated teams. Number 5, Indiana at 10-0, playing at number 2, Ohio State, and number 19, Army at 9-0, playing number 6, Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. Wilbon, you love college football and you hate Notre Dame.
Yeah.
What would be the bigger deal, Indiana beating Ohio State or Army beating Notre Dame?
Well, Tone, historically, we know it would be Army beating Notre Dame. I mean, they've lost, like 15 straight to Notre Dame, dating back to 1958 or something like that. I mean, that would be, and in Yankee Stadium, and I've followed college football, yes, all my life, and Notre Dame all my life, which is now more than 60 years. And so, yes, historically, that is a giant upset result, whatever you want to call it, in whatever category you want to put it. However, given this year, with the first year of this 12-team playoff, and you got so many people doubting Indiana because Indiana hasn't really beaten anybody. And I've seen Indiana in person this year. And Ohio State needs to win this game. Ohio State better win this game or they got no shot at getting in the playoff. Indiana never having won 10 games before in a season, having done it now. And so I'm a Big Ten kid through and through. I'm going to shove Notre Dame to the side, even though I'll be rooting for Army like crazy. And I want to see Indiana, Ohio State. That's the only game for me this weekend, Tom.
Did you actually say that your life is now more than 60 years? It's way more than 60 years. Stop.
That's
okay,
nice.
Let's go back to that. I disagree with you very quickly. I will disagree. I don't think Ohio State will be out of the playoffs, even if they lose to Indiana. Not if they lose to an unbeaten team ranked in the top 5 at that point. So I disagree. I think it's a really good question, which is the bigger deal. I think from the college football playoff standpoint, the bigger deal is Army beating Notre Dame, because at that point, Notre Dame would have a loss at home to Northern Illinois, and then a loss at its second home, New York City, to Army, and they would be out of the college playoffs. They would be out. But in the real world where we live, Indiana beating Ohio State at Ohio State, are you kidding me? That would be the biggest win in the history of Indiana.
Yes,
Army's had bigger wins. Army's been number 1. It's a long time ago, but you could look it up. It existed. This would be unbelievable for Indiana.
Yes,
absolutely. Never. And I will tell you that I don't see Army winning because Navy was undefeated at a neutral site, and Notre Dame pounded them 51-14. I think Indiana's got a better chance, so I'd be stunned. I'd be stunned if they won. Let's take a break. Coming up, what's the word for last night's development with the Sixers?
And could Bo Nix pass Jaden Daniels as the NFL's offensive rook of the year?
So do you think they'll win? Do you think Indiana will beat Ohio State at Ohio State?
No, I want them to, even though Signetti can be so annoying. I'm rooting for Indiana. But
Pardon the Interruption is presented by, you are watching Pardon the Interruption, presented by Bullet Frontier Whiskey, part of Happy Hour.
Time for some pros from the pros. And what's the word? See what we did there? Pros, P-R-O-S-E, pros, P-R-O-S. What's first?
It's blank that the 76ers lost again last night and Paul George got injured.
It's karma. The 76ers have overreached for everything. They overreached when they signed Paul George. They overreached in the way they prepared Joel Embiid to not play at the beginning of the season and then essentially lied about his physical condition. And Mike, it is coming back to bite them. They have played 12 games or 14 games. They've lost 12 games. They've only won twice, and they haven't won in a regulation 48 minutes yet. They had to go to overtime twice to win. This is the first game all year where Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and Paul George played at the same time on the same court. And what happened? Paul George got injured. Embiid 3 or 4 times went down in a heap, came up holding his knees, different knees, not even the same knee, and they lost the game. And I think that's karma.
Well, it's certainly dooming, and that's my word, Tony. And look, Maxey came back. He shot 3 for 13. Who cares? You point out they finally played together. He played 20 minutes. So normally you think, okay, Tyrese Maxey, who is a worker and an attention to detail young man, he's going to pull himself out of this. They're going to get going. And then Paul George gets hurt again. The same knee, hyperextended again. And as you mentioned, Joel Embiid in a heap, which you look and it's like, a boxer who's gone down and you think, oh my God, not 3 times in the same fight because you could get disqualified. It's dooming, Tony, because I don't know. Look, the East, not a lot of teams have separated themselves. I mean, they just haven't. I mean, the Cavaliers and the Celtics have been really good, and there's a pile of people and you can climb. But not if those guys are not on the floor. They seem doomed, and as you know, I don't want that to happen because I root for them. I like these guys. You do not. But I can't argue with it. It's
the thing about
karma
Embiid,
and it's dooming.
And it is like a heavyweight fighter. Embiid got up each time. He stayed in the game or got back in the game in a hurry.
Yeah.
But different knees, Mike. And when he goes down, it looks like it's the worst.
It does.
What's
Tony, looks
next?
bad. Yeah.
Bo Nix has a blank chance of winning Offensive Rookie of the Year.
My word is surprising because all of us had ceded this to Jaden Daniels, especially after the Hail Mary. Some people got so carried away that they mentioned Jaden Daniels as a possible MVP candidate. Let's look at Bo Nix for a second because he started out with nothing. He was 0-2. He had no touchdown passes and 4 interceptions, and the Denver Bronco offense was awful. But since then, Mike, I think he's 6-3. He's got 14 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. And the 3 teams they've lost to are the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Ravens with a combined record of 23-7. He's played really well. The Jaden Daniels in the game since the Hail Mary, it's not terrible. It's 3 touchdown passes and 1 interception, but the team is 1-2. On the year, on 11 games, he's got 10 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. Those are fine numbers, but they're not runaway numbers. They both have 4 rushing touchdowns. So what I'm saying, Mike, is it's a horse race now. It's a horse race.
Yeah, and Tony, I'm going to go. It's not going to surprise you. I'm going to say Knicks has a stat head chance of winning Offensive Rookie of the Year because it's going to come down to numbers, and that's what people are going to do. You just recited numbers, but let me give you some credit. I've known you long enough to know that if there were no numbers, you could use your eyes and sense of what sports and competition and teams are, and you can say, aha, wait, this guy has a bigger impact on the season, on his team, on the league. And they're not going to do that now, Tone. Voters don't do that. They're from another generation. They're from another planet than we are. They're stat heads, and that's what they're going to do. They're not going to compare the things that really matter that impact the game. They're going to go with numbers. And so it's going to make me very angry. And Knicks may be very deserving. He may be, but I'm afraid it's going to come down to just a recitation and comparison of numbers.
So I'll say this, Mike. I will say that both of these guys inherited bad teams and have improved bad teams. And this is one of those things where you wait for 17 games. You really can't know now.
You wait. That's right. You wait till the end.
That's the final word.
Don't mail your ballot in.
Yeah.
Don't hit the done button.
No, let's take one last break. Still to come, Caitlin Clark reportedly makes a decision as to whether to join the new 3-on-3 league.
and the Mavericks are going to lose Luka for, at least a few games.
I'm always sort of surprised. I'm surprised that more basketball players don't go out for 3 games at a time, 3 or 4 times during the season. Not 20 in a row. That's different.
Right.
But you get hurt. It's great exertion. You get hurt.
Pardon the Interruption is presented by Bullet Frontier Whiskey. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Happy time, people. Happy 35th birthday, Justin Tucker. The Ravens kicker has been so good for so long that it's downright strange to see him in a slump. Tucker missed 2 field goals against the Steelers on Sunday in a game Baltimore lost by 2 points. He's missed 6 attempts on the season and can no longer boast of being the most accurate kicker in league history. Tucker said yesterday that he knows the issue. All of his missed field goal attempts this season have been wide left, so he needs to adjust his aim point. He did that successfully on a 54-yarder he made in the second half against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but Tone, there's a lot of movement right to left. Looks like one of us hooking it off the tee. I mean, maybe, though, he can bounce back. He's so great. He's a first-ballot Hall of Famer to me. I mean, I think about my fave kicker of all time, Robbie Gould, and he had a similar patch at one point. He came back to be himself. These guys work so hard, and they're so good. I hope Tucker can come back.
Happy anniversary, Sidney Crosby. On this day 13 years ago, when he was still young enough to be known as Sid the Kid, Crosby played in his first NHL game in over 11 months after dealing with post-concussion symptoms. Crosby led the Penguins to a win with 2 goals and 2 assists. But after just 8 games back on the ice, Crosby would miss another 40 with concussion-like symptoms. For years, concussions were the dominant theme of Crosby's career, but he has since won 2 Stanley Cups, 3 over the course of his career, and he is currently just 1 goal shy of being the 21st player to score 600.
Tony, you want to see players this talented play for as long as they can, be as healthy as they can, and certainly concussions have cut short careers. Paul Correa, great young player who was never able to stay out there and be great as long as his talents told you he could be, and concussions were part of that. Glad that Sidney Crosby has come back to be the great Hall of Famer that he has for Pittsburgh.
Happy trails to Caitlin Clark playing in the new 3-on-3 league. A source tells ESPN that the WNBA's Rookie of the Year will not take part in the new off-season league named Unrivaled, which is scheduled to tip off on January 17th. Clark was reportedly offered $1 million to play the 8-week season, which will feature 6 teams competing on a slightly smaller full court in Miami. By contrast, her rookie salary with the Indiana Fever was just $76,000. Clark went right from her college season into the WNBA earlier this year and seems to be focused on golf lately. Just yesterday, she played her second Pro-Am in as many weeks.
I'm glad to see this, Tony. I'm glad to see that Caitlin Clark, first of all, will have the best advice she can get financially about what to do for salaries and compensation and all of that. She already has access to that, I'm sure. But how about just some rest? How about putting the basketball down for a few months and, hitting the golf ball, getting away from the game, because she's going to have enough pressure come the next season. Caitlin Clark's going to be out there for a long time, dealing with a lot of pressure in seasons, and so walk away from it for a minute.
I agree with that completely. She doesn't have to go out there and be a 12-month-a-year basketball player.
She doesn't.
Doesn't have to do it. I mean, the most important thing is how does she do in the WNBA? I think she's doing the right thing. Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Luka Doncic is expected to miss multiple games with a wrist injury. Is that significant?
Well, as long as it's only a few games, we evaluate it in a week. The Mavs are 8-7, but they got Kyrie Irving still out there. Lefties Tarek Skubal and Chris Sale easily won their first size last night. Who you got for MVP tonight? And this ought to be easy picking.
Yeah, well, it's Shohei and it's Judge. And the Cy Young guys got it because they had the Triple Crown. They deserved it. Of course, they picked the right people so far. 5-star high school quarterback prospect Julian Lewis switched from his commitment from USC to Colorado. What does that tell you?
Nothing. People are trying to link this now to what Deion's going to do. 5 stars flame out. 2 stars rise up and become great. Stop with the recruiting nonsense. Tired of it. A 2-day edition of The Match will tee off tonight. You intrigued?
Yeah, I think Billy Murray is in it, and my boy Nate Bargatze, comedian who I've played golf with, is in it, so I want to see it. Last one, college hoops tonight. 13th ranked Baylor versus number 22 St. John's. You like Patino's chances?
I do, Tony. This is a game worth watching. I do. I want to see St. John's under Coach Patino. Yes.
Yeah. We're out of time. Try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
And I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. And now, your sports.
So I played at Columbia with Bargatze. He wanted to play from, the tips. We moved him up.
You're up to it. You're up to it.
With much more on tonight's PTI bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon. Any chance the Sixers can turn the season around?
Ooh. Tony, you would think that only fewer than 15 games in, that would be a premature question, but it's not. Because they've been first bad, first injured, then not good, and injured again. And Embiid goes down, and when he does, you're just hoping, oh my goodness, he's holding his leg, he's holding some part of his leg or one knee and then the other knee. Like, how long can this go on? When is he going to be physically ready to be an MVP level player, which of course he has been? And they get Maxey back, and I expect Maxey to be, but then Paul George goes out again. So how long can this go on? The East being mediocre is saving the Sixers for right now, like he was saving Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's strung together a few wins now. Tony, they can do it, but it needs to start to come together soon.
Yeah, of course there's a chance. They've played 15 games of an 82-game schedule. That leaves you with 65 games. Of course there's a chance that they can do it. I've used the word karma to describe what's happening to the 76ers because I think that they have overreached. I thought they overreached when they went and got Paul George. I thought they overreached with their plan to hold Embiid out from the beginning of the season, and then the league fined them because essentially they had lied with the reasoning of what was going on. And I feel that it is coming back to bite them at this point because they've only won 2 games and they've had to go to overtime to win both those games. But in terms of having a chance, sure. I mean, they got real players there. They got 3 great players. But I will focus on what you said about Embiid. When he goes down, and he goes down in every game multiple times, and he's on the ground or he's on one knee and he's holding that knee, you say to yourself, he's done. Because he gets hurt every single year. Now, they have no chance without him. He is that good. And I don't know, Mike, how many games he's going to play.
And Tony, not knowing that this year is not about, playing 65 games for the awards minimum. It's not. They need him out on that court to be great if they're ever going to reach. And let me just add this. They do have a coach who is both resourceful and patient and
won a championship.
And skilled, and he wears a ring in Nick Nurse.
Yeah, won a championship.
They've got the ingredients, as we're both pointing out, but at some point you got to make the soup. At some point.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. Back to you.
Right now.